Welcome to Cairo, Egypt's capital. If we go east from Cairo, we will come across the Sahara Desert, an arid landscape with only a few motorways running across it. However, the satellite photographs we're looking at here are from 2015. Ever since, a lot has changed as the Egyptian government is completely transforming this region and welcoming the world to a new scenario. The development of a new capital city in the middle of the desert is seen right where we are. But why is a new capital being built? Why did they pick such an inconvenient site for the project? Hey everyone, how are you doing today? Before we proceed with this video, do not forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Today, we are looking at Egypt's proposed capital and why the government's putting up the structure. Stay with us to the end, and you'll be blown away by the reason. A massive new administrative capital is being created in Egypt, some 45 kilometers, 28 miles, east of Cairo, on a tract of the desert the size of Singapore. You may think that the Egyptian government began on this multi-billion-dollar initiative to satisfy an urgent need if you stroll or drive around Cairo. The current capital, in fact, is hardly functional. Ministries and embassies surrounding Cairo's centerpiece, Tahrir Square, clogged the city's roads. Many streets are closed to guarantee the safety of these structures and their occupants, making it problematic to go from one point to another in the city. Furthermore, the 22 million strong population of the already overburdened capital is set to triple by 2050. As a result, it's simple to see why the new administrative capital, which will eventually house government agencies, embassies, 30 ministries, the parliament, a spiraling presidential compound, and 6.5 million people, is required. It appears that it will relocate governmental buildings and provide much-needed housing in Cairo. The new capital will have a star, Green River, which will be double the size of New York's Central Park, with open water and planted flora. In addition, the government has pledged to provide 15 square meters of green space for each person in the new construction. As a result, the project is being marketed to combat pollution and make Egypt greener. But suppose you dig under the surface and follow the money most crucially. In that case, you'll realize that this initiative is far more than a government-led attempt to decongest Cairo and enhance the city's residents' living standards. Who will benefit the most from this multi-billion-dollar project? The cost of the new administrative capital is anticipated to be around $40 billion. The Egyptian military owns 51% of the administrative capital for urban development, ACUD. The company in charge of the project and the Ministry of Housing owns the remaining 49%. The military's massive participation in supporting the project exemplifies the combination of civil and military power in a country headed by a former army commander. Current President Abdel Fattah el-Sisi took control after a coup deposed Mohamed Morsi, Egypt's first democratically elected president. The military isn't only funding the initiative, it will also benefit financially from this ambitious undertaking. The ACUD is responsible for selling housing units in the new capital, and the military owns a majority of the company. Furthermore, the firm is in charge of selling or operating the buildings in Cairo that will be left vacant after agencies, ministries, and embassies relocate. Some of these structures are valuable and are located in the center of Cairo, overlooking Tahrir Square. As a result, once the new capital is constructed, the military will reap significant financial benefits. Furthermore, because the government has no jurisdiction over the military's finances, these profits will not be scrutinized by civilian authority. The construction effort is a significant economic potential in and of itself. Not only money is required to construct a new city, but also cement, bricks, electrical appliances, carpentry, security equipment, and most importantly, personnel. As a result, this project offers a chance to create much-needed jobs while also revitalizing Egypt's fundamental industries, such as building. However, there are concerns that the project would not only assist the country's backbone sectors and struggling firms in regaining their footing, but will also allow the military to expand its tentacles farther into Egypt's economy. The army, for instance, has the capacity to supply much of the steel and cement required to finish the new city's development. In addition, it has access to low-cost labor in the form of conscripts. As a result, the military is poised to benefit the most from this unparalleled development effort. It's also unclear who will be allowed to reside in the new capital when it's finished. The housing units there are selling for astronomically high rates. In a country where the gross domestic product, GDP, per capita is around $3,000, a two-bedroom apartment in the new capital costs around $50,000, a large sum out of reach for many. As a result, it appears that the new administrative capital will function as another gated enclave for the wealthy, while doing little to address Cairo's poor and underprivileged people's housing needs. If the government does not make immediate efforts to ensure that the new city's gates are also open to poorer inhabitants, the new initiative will be ineffective in assisting Egyptians who are impoverished. This is why many people regard the new administrative capital as a massive waste of resources. Critics assert that the money infused in the new capital should have gone to improving living conditions in the poorest areas of what would become known as Old Cairo. In response to these critics, the government stated that the city would eventually contain social housing, but did not specify when these apartments would be created or made available to individuals in need. All of this reminds us of Hosni Mubarak's government and its fall. The development of wealthy capitalist cliques aided the economy's growth, but also prevented the benefits of that expansion from reaching the weaker parts of society during Mubarak's final decade in power. Social justice was one of the most famous slogans during the January 2011 protests that ousted Mubarak's rule. El-Sisi looks to be replicating the mistakes that led to Mubarak's demise with this scheme, which will certainly make the country's wealthiest richer, the military stronger, and contribute to the ever-increasing misdistribution of resources. But why is El-Sisi moving forward with this massive effort if the initiative isn't going to serve the people and boost their support for the government? Egypt's new administrative capital may not help regular Egyptians much, but it will benefit President El-Sisi significantly. First and foremost, this new effort will assist El-Sisi in enlisting the support of Egypt's major businesses. During Mubarak's reign, Egypt's private sector had considerable economic and political power. However, since El-Sisi's ascension to power, the military has mostly ignored it and confined it to a supporting role. Authoritarian administrations in neoliberal economies, such as Egypt's, rely on private sector support to maintain stability, and El-Sisi understands that a massive construction initiative, such as the development of a new capital, is the greatest way to win over corporations. While the military will most likely benefit the most from the new administrative capital's construction, the project is so huge and lucrative that it will also provide chances for the private sector. For example, the Talat Mustafa Group, one of Egypt's largest construction businesses, has laid the groundwork for a smart city project, termed Noir City, in the new administrative city. Such projects encourage the private sector to support the government while also generating substantial tax income. For example, Noir City is predicted to generate $7 billion in tax revenue. El-Sisi will gain much-needed legitimacy as a result of the new capital. Egyptian politics has traditionally been dominated by personality cults. Egypt's monarchs have tried to demonstrate the legitimacy of their power by naming towns, buildings, roads, and bridges after themselves over the years. Egypt's former leader, Anwar Sadat, has a city named after him, as well as scores of bridges and roads bearing the name of former President Hosni Mubarak. Despite the fact that the new administrative capital is not named after El-Sisi, it is his most important initiative and legacy. The state-controlled media is constantly covering his repeated visits to the city. It is impossible to consider the new city without considering El-Sisi. The major mosque in the new administrative capital is called Al-Fatah Al-Alim, the Opener, Knowledgeable, which is a combination of two divine names. Although Some see it as a reference to the president, whose first name is Abdel Fattah. Finally, and perhaps most crucially, the new project will aid el-Sisi in controlling and consolidating his grip over any future uprising against his dictatorship. When Mubarak lost control of the critical Tahrir Square in 2011, it was evident to all of us in Egypt that he had lost authority. On January 28, 2011, protesters took over the square and declared the Republic of Tahrir. They formed a symbolic cabinet, established their own security system, and set fire to the ruling National Democratic Party's headquarters on the square. Mubarak's regime was suddenly devoid of legitimacy. Morsi also went to Tahrir Square on the day of his victory, met the crowds, and unbuttoned his jacket, demonstrating to the people that he was not wearing a bulletproof vest and, as their representative, was not scared of them. He had control of Tahrir Square and, as a result, Egypt. Morsi's opponents gathered in the same place a few months later to demand and subsequently celebrate his fall from power. Throughout it all, el-Sisi was clearly taking notes and recognizing the importance of Tahrir Square in attaining and maintaining power in Egypt. As a result, as soon as he took power, he began striving to delegitimize the square as the venue for determining the legitimacy of Egyptian administrations. People can no longer seize control of Tahrir Square and dispute the legitimacy of el-Sisi's authority. To prevent anti-government demonstrators from filling the site, his government placed pharaonic monuments and hired private security personnel. He is now relocating the country's center of gravity, main institutions, and seats of power to a guarded, artificial desert oasis 45 kilometers, 28 miles away, in order to further weaken the square's relevance. The question will be whether that will work, as well as how natural growth will influence the city's destiny once the original ideas are implemented. Thank you very much for taking the time to watch. Please consider subscribing if you enjoyed it.